Think prevention, live long.
I'm Dr. Ajesh. I'm sitting down with one of my patients, Ms. Burch, Susan Burch here, and I want her to tell us what she went through yesterday. But before that, let me set some stage so we understand what Ms. Burch is going to explain what happened yesterday. When a person has a heart blockage, heart attack can happen. So we have to find if a person has a heart blockage or not. The way we find as a cardiologist the heart blockage, that we do cardiac catheterization, where we essentially put a tube, get up to the heart, inject the dye, and take the pictures. Now obviously, all the arteries come out of the heart, right? All the arteries come out of the heart. So you can get to the heart going backwards from a variety of arteries. Typically, until today, or until now, typically all of us, all cardiologists, have gone through the artery in the groin because it's a big artery, it's easy to get to, and then we can go backwards towards the heart and take the pictures. The problem with that approach is that if a bleeding happens, it's hard to see because it's in the groin. The artery is very deep, so sometimes you don't even see the blood until it's too late. Person has to actually stay in the bed for 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours, put a sandbag, because the artery is so big that we want to make sure, and the pressure is high too. And traditionally the pressure in the leg is higher than the pressure in the hand. So we had to put longer amount of pressure to hold, to stop the bleeding or prevent the bleeding. And also we had to put the person a longer bed rest to make sure bleeding doesn't happen, because there's higher pressure in the artery in the groin. Plus, the key thing to remember here is that the leg has only one artery. There are other arteries around the leg, but the leg has one main artery. So if that artery gets in trouble, the leg can get compromised. Plus, if the bleeding happens in the leg, it's hard to control because you cannot put pressure that deep in the leg. So why do I say all this thing? The reason I said all this thing is because until now, we all have done cardiac catheterization through the groin. But that's only in Lansing. If you look at most countries in Europe, Asia, like India, Japan, China, all catheterizations, I would say 80 out of 100 happens through the hand. We call radial artery catheterization, and she's going to explain us about that too. In the US, if you go to one of the hospitals in New York, for example at Sinai, 80 out of 100 happens through the hand at Sinai in New York. Now, why? Because they started doing it, and after 50 they realized that this is not much different than going to the groin. So it just matter of doing first few and asking patient the permission to make sure they know that I've done 0 in last 10 years. We all are trained to do it, but we just take an approach which is a traditional approach. Nothing wrong with doing the tradition, right? Mm-hmm. But sometimes we have to break the tradition for safety and comfort, and we have to keep growing. That's how I feel. Mm-hmm. Or we have to regrow, I should say, because we all were taught how to do the radial catheterization in our fellowship, so 15, 17, 18 years ago. Mm-hmm. But then we stopped doing it because everybody else is not doing through it. So she's going to tell us now her own experience of what she kind of anticipated with the catheterization, what she knew through her friends, how her experience was, what happened last night, what happened this morning, what happened with some of her husband's friend had a catheterization, and they're saying that why can't we have everyone go through radial catheterization. To tell us.
Well, my mother had a catheterization done years ago, and it was through the groin, and it was a lot of pain, and she had a lot of trouble, laying there for the 4 hours or whatever it was it takes to lay there. And I have a couple brothers that have had the open heart surgery and have had to do the same thing, and they complained about the same thing, having to lay there. I was really impressed that I didn't know there was such a thing as this. So
it's been there for 30 years.
So I was delighted when you said we can go through the wrist instead of the groin, and then you explained to me that if that wasn't possible, we'd have to go through the groin, and I'm like, okay. So I was tickled to death that it was this simple to me.
Don't say tickled to death, just say tickled to life.
Tickled to life, okay.
That's a new phrase.
That we could go through this way, and I was really impressed with the recovery time, not having to stay very long, with it. And
Tell me about during the catheterization, you were awake, and right after catheterization, you were able to get off the table.
Right.
And the nurses at Sparrow. Tell me about that. How was the
Yeah.
experience over there?
yeah, I was awake, but then I can't say I really had any pain other than it felt like a little bit of burning at my wrist, and other than that, I'd be lying if I said I had pain and getting up, and I was impressed that I could get up and walk
away.
around and
Walk
walk
away.
away. And
I mean, she walked away from catheterization. Most of the time, we have to take them away in a bed. Here, she could walk away. So we'll just go ahead and let it heal. The good news is that hopefully we'll never need it again because everything looks good, and cholesterol is good, blood pressure is good, and this was the first and last real cardiac catheterization you had.
Oh, that's great.
hopefully.
Yes.
When we think prevention, live long. The heart of mid-Michigan strong.